Thanksgiving is one of those holidays that brings families together. People book flights, take trains, ride buses, and even carpool to make it home for this holiday. You get to see family you may not normally be able to see during the year: parents and siblings, aunts and uncles, cousins and in laws, neighbors, and friends you grew up with. It's a time of good food and laughter. It's a lot of memories that are made during this holiday season, like that dancing auntie that's always dancing in the kitchen, making food and serving food. Yeah, we laugh at her because she really don't have no rhythm, but she keep on dancing. What about the auntie that makes the nasty potato salad that nobody likes to eat, but they force themselves to eat it anyway to keep from hurting their feelings? Then you have the annual Turkey Bowl football game, where a group of your friends, family, and or coworkers come together early in the morning to play a game of pickup football. In the Turkey Bowl, it's like everybody wants to be a quarterback, no matter if you 5'10" and 300 pounds or 6'6", 120 pounds. People were out there scrambling in the cold, trying to throw footballs and score touchdowns like Michael Vick. Then there's the guy that takes these games way too serious. He out there hitting to hurt people. Or the guy that's out there trying to call plays like he's reliving his high school days. People have to keep reminding him like, yo, this is just a pickup game, bro. I used to play in some of these games. We had this dude we called D. D was into weightlifting and bodybuilding. The type of dude that no shirt fit him correctly because of his massive biceps. Anyway, he didn't care about being a quarterback like everybody else. He wanted to run a football down your throat. He wanted to run you over. And he wanted to hit you so hard that he would knock you out of your football cleats. Yeah, he was out there like Debo, cracking people. Oh well. Yeah, many cats couldn't enjoy the Thanksgiving meal because they were being fitted for a cast on their hands or their legs. Yeah, I had to hang up the cleats, man. It wasn't worth possibly missing work for a game of football. But anyway, this Turkey Bowl game is a part of this holiday tradition. Now, after the Turkey Bowl game and everybody goes back to their homes and their families, at some point people start to arrive at the house that is serving or putting on this Thanksgiving Day celebration. And now it's time to enjoy the food. Many families pray and they bless the food. While they're praying, many people give thanks and they speak as to what they are thankful for. I can't speak to what other groups of people do on Thanksgiving concerning prayer, but I can tell you that my people definitely make prayer a part of the celebration. At the Thanksgiving table, you could find 2 or 3 generations of family members at the table sitting down to enjoy the meal. Many people enjoy the conversations. Many people enjoy the jokes and the laughter. Now, after we enjoyed the meal and the conversation, we would enter into another Thanksgiving tradition, which is watching the annual NFL football game lineup. At this point, you just full and stuffed. You just want to kick up your feet and either sleep or enjoy the football games on TV. Yeah, you even get to see the victorious teams eat turkey on live TV. Now, after we get our fill of the football games, we prepare meaning we take a short power nap. But before we take our short power nap, we go and pick up a newspaper with the Black Friday ads, which brings us into our next tradition, Black Friday shopping. This shopping season officially opens us up to the Christmas season, meaning Christmas music played in the stores. Yeah, all your favorite songs, your Charlie Browns, your Boyz II Men, Let It Snow, your Frank Sinatra, your Jingle Bells, all the stuff, over and over and over and over. Now, after you awaken from your nap, you might get your second fill of food. Then you get your jacket and your gloves on, and then everybody giving you lists to go get the items in different stores that is opening later that day or that night or early Friday morning. And they got those doorbuster deals, those too good to be true type of deals. $500 TVs for $150. So you leave before it even get dark so you can stand in line for that television set, that 50-inch television set for $120. That doorbuster deal that is a first come, first served type of deal. But what you don't know is the store only got 38 television sets on hand, yet there's a line of over 300 people to get access to those television sets. So when the store opened, people bust themselves through the door to make sure they can get one of these TVs. The people go wild and savage. They knock each other over to get their hands on a TV set. Some of them be fighting in front of their own children. Some even get their children to help in this battle for the TV set. Those lucky enough to get one of these doorbuster items, they put it in a cart and rush as quick as they can through the carnage to get to the cash register and to get into their vehicles, leaving behind the mayhem and the destruction. Welcome to Black Friday mayhem and madness. Those of you who have worked in retail before know that the store managers become like seasoned war generals around this time of year as they gather their associates together for a store meeting before they open their doors up to the waiting mob. They pump up their workers with fiery speeches and provide plenty of coffee, donuts, and other foods, but the workers are still full from eating turkey earlier in the day. Now, after the fiery speeches and all the prep talking, nothing could stop them from getting a handle on the carnage that would surely happen. Now, after you have escaped with the spoils of war and your life, you begin to hide those future Christmas gifts. You stash them all over the house. And by Sunday, you're starting to put up your Christmas trees. You're getting your kids and your relatives to start to pull the ornaments and stuff out of the boxes, out of the garages and the basements. Now you're in full Christmas mode. So we can see that with the start of Thanksgiving, it also transitions seamlessly into the Christmas season. So this is what Thanksgiving is pretty much now as it stands. But historically, what is at the root of this cherished holiday? Now let us look at a bit of history concerning the holiday called Thanksgiving. Let us watch this short video done by the History Channel on Thanksgiving.
To most Americans, the Pilgrims of Plymouth, Massachusetts are the iconic inspiration for today's Thanksgiving feast. After the winter of 1620 killed almost half of their people, the colonists formed a relationship with the neighboring Wampanoag tribe, who taught them about fishing, planting, and hunting. By autumn of 1621, the colonists had collected enough food to feed the community through the coming winter. The Wampanoags joined the colonists for a 3-day feast in honor of their bounty. The feast probably did not include our modern Thanksgiving staple, turkey. More likely, the colonists and Wampanoags dined on roast goose, along with corn, codfish, and lobster. This 1621 harvest meal is now commonly thought of as the first Thanksgiving. Yet for later generations of colonists, New England days of Thanksgiving had little to do with the 1621 harvest festival. Theirs was a religious holiday, descended from Puritan days of fasting, prayer, and giving thanks to God. Every autumn, the governor of each colony would declare days of thanksgiving for bountiful harvests, victorious battles, or drought-ending rains. In 1777, the Continental Congress decreed that all 13 of America's colonies celebrate a national day of Thanksgiving that year in celebration of their victory over the British at Saratoga. By the mid-19th century, many states celebrated the holiday. However, the date could vary by weeks or even months. A determined magazine editor named Sarah Josepha Hale set about establishing a national Thanksgiving Day. She passionately believed that such a day would help unite a nation headed towards civil war. Hale began a one-woman letter-writing campaign, urging politicians to establish an annual day of Thanksgiving. Her efforts were finally rewarded by Abraham Lincoln, who saw the unifying potential of the holiday. In 1863, 4 months after the victory at Gettysburg, he declared the last Thursday of November to be Thanksgiving Day. By the 20th century, Thanksgiving was a welcome day of leisure from a 6-day work week. In the 1920s, the National Football League was formed. In an effort to boost attendance, the fledgling Detroit Lions devised the concept of a Thanksgiving Day game. Parades also became a Turkey Day tradition, and department stores quickly saw their value as a kickoff to the Christmas shopping season. The Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade began in 1924, and year after year, millions of New Yorkers braved the cold to watch the festivities. Most of all, Thanksgiving is about family. With modern life moving faster than ever, Thanksgiving gives us a day to take a collective breath, reconnect with loved ones, and remember just how much we have to be thankful for.
Here's the turkey!
First, I want to say that I think that the documentary was well done by the History Channel. Of course, they gave us the sweet and bloodless version of the history of Thanksgiving, because this so-called relationship formed between the Wampanoag tribe and the colonists really is a microcosm of how many early Europeans dealt with the indigenous people at the time when they needed their help and their survival was on the line. They were forced to play nice. Now, it is very true that when early Europeans came into the so-called New World, they struggled yielding from the land. They were planting seeds out of season. Many colonists were losing their lives to environmental conditions. They also was losing their lives to eating the wrong fruits and berries and vegetation. They were struggling with the basic of basic things. They were struggling to fish and to hunt off the land. The story of the Wampanoag tribe stepping in to help the early European colonists survive the conditions in the New World is a characteristic of indigenous culture as a whole. In general, indigenous culture have a high level of hospitality towards strangers. There were many indigenous people outside of the Wampanoag tribe that came to the rescue of early European colonists when they were in their most desperate times of need. Who would have thought that once the European colonists gained mastery over the land, when they could not only survive but thrive without the help of indigenous peoples, that they would turn on them, the very same people responsible for their survival. The indigenous peoples of the Americas had a similar culture to their brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa. They both had a culture that many would call humanistic in general, where the person is valued over their property and their things. And if there came a time where a person was in need and they had the opportunity to do good for a fellow man, they would do good. And they would do this not as a ploy to deceive a person or a group to later get some type of advantage, but they did this to genuinely be a help. Those people that were in the Americas and on the continent of Africa, when they came in contact with the European, they did not know the type of man that they were dealing with. History shows that all the time when you analyze it. Yeah, you don't let the wolf into the hen house and not expect the wolf to eat all the hens. You don't invite into your home a murderer and don't expect him to do murder, or a thief and don't expect him to steal everything not nailed down. Just like with many of my people, the indigenous people assumed that this man was like them, that there was some type of shared humanity, some type of common ground of human concern for the betterment of both peoples, some type of common ground where there's boundaries that existed between the group, boundaries that no group would cross, but there wasn't. There were no common ground. There were wolves dressed as sheeps, and there were sheeps not understanding that they were in a den of wolves. Both brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa and the indigenous peoples of the Americas were naive concerning Europeans. This is a theme. Hernan Cortez and the conquistadors are credited as the destroyers of the mighty Aztec Mayan Empire. The very few accounts that were recorded reflected how the Aztec truly didn't understand the type of men that they were dealing with. It was wrote that the Aztec warriors saw the conquistadors as cowards, how they were shooting their weapons from a distance, weapons which we know as guns today, and how they were fighting on large deer, which we know as horses today. They were terribly shocked at how these Europeans would use the Aztec women and children in war. One of the strategies that they used to cripple the empire was that they closed off the city from being able to get food and provisions, which caused devastation within the cities of their empire. Starvation was all over the streets, and the women and the children were the most affected. Using women and children in war just wasn't a thought. It wasn't something that was put on the table. It was one of those common ground things that indigenous people had with one another for the most part. I'm not saying that in extreme circumstances that it wasn't some indigenous somewhere that did this. I'm saying that it was extremely rare. But this was business as usual for Europeans. They have a history of this type of warfare. We see that they have done this type of warfare wherever they went in the world. We've seen them do this in the Americas, on the continent of Africa, in Mexico, and in India, and other places also. Everywhere this man went, he brought death with him, and hell followed him. At the beginning of this video, I put a Bible verse up that talked about the pale horse. Let's read it now. Let's go to the book of Revelation, chapter 6, verse 8. And it reads, "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth." Had this not been the experience of people of color? Since we are talking about Thanksgiving, I'll keep it specific to the indigenous people. Have they not been slaughtered with European swords and European guns and European muskets? Have they not been slaughtered with the death of diseases like smallpox, which wiped out many native groups throughout all the Americas and Mexico? People who had no immunity to European diseases. And the end results was mounds and mounds and mounds of dead bodies all over the place. And these bodies were all indigenous. And they all fell some way in some form by the hands of these Europeans. We know of some of the massive indigenous civilizations like the Aztec Mayan civilization or the Inca civilization. But did you know about a people called the Tezcala or the Tezcalan people? They had a large civilization. What about the Cholulan people, the people of Cholula? They had a large civilization. What do you know about the Taino people? A people that was so large they were spread across many lands. They were heavy in what we would call today the Caribbean. Places like Puerto Rico were filled with large populations of them. And now they are all but a footnote in history. So what happened to them? Well, if the European sword didn't get to them, their guns did. If their guns didn't get to them, their diseases did. If their diseases didn't get to them, hard labor did. And if hard labor didn't get to them, the European male sperm did. And they was breeded out and became a new people, a mixture of different peoples. Some call this process being whited out. Back to the conquistadors. Did you know that they used to use trained dogs to fight against the indigenous peoples? They realized that the indigenous people didn't wear really no armor, and their bodies were bare in certain areas where dogs can get to them and make a quick kill. Yeah, they was killed with the beast of the earth. Like the scriptures say, behold the pale horse. It's a fair argument when people discuss celebrating family and not the holiday of Thanksgiving itself. But the holiday of Thanksgiving is rooted in deception. It is rooted in lies. When the pilgrims came to the table to eat with the natives, they had an alternative motive. You can ask me, how do I know? And I would tell you that history tells us about the plight of the natives throughout the whole world. In fact, history tells us that the very reality that indigenous people today look more white than they do African or so-called black is a sign of a crime against their people. The wholesale sexual assault of their women is a sign of a crime. They have been, as some would say, whited out. You can't argue with that. On a rare occasion that you come across natives, especially if you don't live near their populations, you'll see many of their skin tones as closer to white than to black. Another thing, the very fact that you don't see the indigenous people in large numbers in lands that they used to occupy in large numbers is a result of a crime. The fact that places like Australia look like England is a result of a crime. When indigenous populations look like they could have came off the continent of Africa. So this nation has us celebrating a union of friendship between two very different people and two very different groups with two very different agendas. These two very different people have different cultures and values and history. And we seen earlier in a video that President Abraham Lincoln seen a celebration of what would be called Thanksgiving later as a means to unify the country. And if we know anything about Abraham Lincoln, he was all about saving the Union, keeping states from leaving the Union. So we could see where his mind was at. Yeah, he didn't care about these two groups meeting for a dinner. He cared about strengthening the foundation of the country. Let's just say that this meeting between the Wampanoag tribe and the early Pilgrim colonists did happen, and they met and sat down to have a lunch and to be thankful for one another. We know now with history that these two people weren't really allies. You had one group disguised as an ally, but in reality was an enemy. And you had one group that would take everything that the other group has. Their wealth, their lands, their substance, and even their lives. So we had a lion and a gazelle at a dinner table. How could they ever become friends? We had a bird of prey and a mouse at the dinner table. How could they ever become friends? So when we celebrate Thanksgiving, we are celebrating a deception, a false pretense. We are celebrating the trickery of a man we still don't know, which is a crime in itself. Because at this point in time, we should know who our enemy is. Now, I get the family part. Really, I do. But you have to consider everything outside of that, which is included in the celebration of this holiday. And let me say this. We also have to come to understand that we are in Babylon. And at the very least, we are under a Babylonian system. This video is called Thanksgiving. I did not come up with the concept of this. In fact, revolutionary groups and organizations came up with this concept of Thanksgiving, which is an understanding that the end result of the indigenous people meeting the European people was that the European would eventually kill, steal, and destroy and take everything that the indigenous people had. So what the early European settler and the Europeans that would come after them, what they was thankful for having the opportunity to exploit, oppress, and to steal and to take from the indigenous people, a people that showed them hospitality, which history tells us now that they should have showed them the sword. One of the worst sins that the Europeans have committed against their indigenous brothers and sisters was the sin of ingratitude. They was ungrateful for all the things that the indigenous people did for them. Without the indigenous people, they wouldn't have survived past the first 2 years. So in reality, what are we really celebrating when we're celebrating Thanksgiving? The indigenous people definitely don't have their lands back or their wealth. All right, that concludes today's lesson. I hope that you enjoyed it and it was a blessing to you. If you enjoyed it, give all the praise and the glory to the Most High God. I want to take time out to give the Most High all the glory, all the praise, and all the honor for putting this lesson on my heart and giving me the skill set to be able to carry it out. With that being said, don't forget to repent and happy Thanksgiving. Shalom.